Hello, everybody. This is Friday, and we're recording yet another episode of NanaTalks podcast. I do have another amazing veteran entrepreneur, absolutely incredible human being. I've talked a little bit before with John, and he appears to be super interesting, and he knows tons of things. He acts as the coach, and in a minute, John gonna share much more about himself with all of you folks. Meanwhile, I would ask you to share, comment, let us know that you like what we are trying to do here, that you like the channel and all the information we are sharing with the veterans, entrepreneurs, military spouses. So let's rock and roll.
Awesome. Well, yeah. Thanks for the somewhat introduction. So I'm John Dowling, USMC veteran. Really excited about this weekend. So if you are a Marine, or if you know a Marine, you know that November 10th is our birthday. We're celebrating 249 years, and unlike most branches of the military, our birthday is a really big deal. So we have what we call the Marine Corps Ball. It's an awesome ceremony with a lot of tradition, and even in a war zone, the Marine Corps will like fly in cake, so the Marines can celebrate the Marine Corps birthday party. So. Interesting fact about me is my brother was a Marine. I've got two nephews that are Marines. My brother-in-law was a Marine. My father-in-law was a Marine. And so anyways, going to my brother-in-law's house this weekend, and my father-in-law is going to join us, and we're going to celebrate the Marine Corps birthday together. So traditional meal for the Marine Corps birthday is steak and lobster. So in the
Not
Marine
bad.
Corps, yeah, not bad. In the Marine Corps, the chow is not good. It's okay. Um, but on the Marine Corps birthday, they literally serve steak and lobster in the chow hall. So basically, because we fight on the land and also in the sea, so cows on the land, lobsters in the
Yeah.
sea.
So you have to wait like the whole year to have a proper meal.
Yes, pretty much.
But
So
as one of my previous guests, the Chuck Wright, he's from the Texas Veteran Commission, and he
mhm,
also served in the Marine Corps. And
nice.
he told that, like, well, as you can see clearly, if you want something to get done, just find Marine.
Yep. Yeah.
They're the ones. So
Yeah, I've heard. I don't know. Well, I don't know if this is true, but I'm sure it is. But dollar for dollar, like government spending money, dollar for dollar, the Marine Corps gets more done than anybody else. And so one reason, my opinion, I'm not saying this is a fact, but one reason is we are a part of the Navy. So we are Department of the Navy, and so most Marines will let when we meet somebody in the Navy, we always let them know that we were in the Navy as well, and they get all excited and want to know like what ship were we on, and we say, well, we were in the men's department of the Navy, and because we're a department of the Navy. So, anyways, go back to funding. The Navy gets all the aircraft carriers and submarines. Like they blow all their money, and then they go, here you go, Marine Corps. Here's a little bit of money left. A little bit of money left
I
for
would
you.
wonder to check it out because I do know that a lot of veterans, eventually going to open their own business by
Mm-hmm.
different reasoning. One of the most popular, I would say, reasoning folks are sharing with me is the need of the being independent. They don't want to
Mm-hmm.
build the career
Yeah.
inside the enterprise where they're going to be being told or dictated how they have to build up
Yeah.
or what they have to do. Well, nonetheless, I would really wonder. I mean, I've never seen the statistics like that, but to see what is the split behind the different branches of
Mm-hmm.
the US Army, to see where's going to be the most. Because in my case, I don't know, maybe it's just my bubble, but 80% of all the entrepreneurs, coaches, bankers,
Mm-hmm.
they are serving in government related departments. all are Marines. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, is there any other branches? Oh, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had only one guest, Carol Hank,
Mm-hmm.
and she was from the Coast Guard. And
Okay.
that's it. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, are there any other branches in the
Well, you know,
like?
being an entrepreneur and being a Marine. So in the Marine Corps, you have a saying, because we have zero money. Like we don't have a lot of money. We always have to. So we always talk about improvising, adapting, and overcome. Like anytime there's a problem, like you have to improvise, you have to adapt, and then we overcome. And if you're going to start your own business or go out on your own, I mean, you don't have a large budget. You don't have a lot of money. You've got to know marketing. You got to know accounting. You got to know tax law, and you just got to figure a way out to do it. Like, okay, here's the obstacle, and we have to figure out a way to get over it. And so I remember when I was in combat training, MCT in the Marine Corps, our instructors told us that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, and it doesn't matter if there's like a mountain in the way or not. You just go over the mountain. And so the joke is the Army will go around the mountain, and it takes them longer to get there, and Marines just go straight there. And I think that can-do attitude of just make things happen really drives Marines to be independent. Like, we can figure this out. We can do it our own. And it's, Marines want to earn everything that they do. Like, that's one thing that was drawn to the Marine Corps about was the traditions, and everything on a U.S. Marines uniform he's earned. I mean, to the very buttons, to the, when you start boot camp, you have to earn everything. And that's a part of it. You earn the title. Like, if you join the Army, then you're a soldier because you joined the Army. Well, you can join the Marine Corps, but if you don't graduate boot camp, you didn't earn the title. Like, you're not a Marine. To wear the Marines uniform, to even wear the EGA, the Eagle, Globe, and Anchor, you earn that. You earn that right. And now they have this thing called the Crucible. I'm a lot older than so when I was in boot camp, we did not have the Crucible, but it's like the 72-hour long period. They get a couple hours of sleep, a little bit of food, and it's just like this grinding experience. But at the end of it, they give everybody an EGA, and they earn it. They earn that, and at that point on, they're called U.S. Marines. Of course, I went in 1994, and so I said, a little time ago. For us, we weren't called Marines until graduation day. Like, so Marine Corps boot camp, 3 months long. You're called everything in the world but Marines, and then on the very last day, on graduation, you go out and on the parade deck, and the commanding officer comes out and says, "Good morning, Marines." And that's
Wow,
the very
that's a
first
lot.
time in your whole life that you're called a U.S. Marine. And so you literally go through hell for 3 straight months to earn that title, and then you go out to graduation and you hear that. And I
And
think,
this is only the beginning, right? It's just like being graduated out of the boot
mhm,
camp. It's only the beginning.
yeah,
Uh, Do you remember how big was the percentage of all the folks who made it through the boot camp?
like people who made it all the way through.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I would probably say
Approximately.
I would probably say 75, 85%. There's quite a few people who don't make it. But what's interesting is the drill instructors. A lot of times people think that the drill instructor is your enemy. He's trying to get you out. Yeah, and yes, we're trying to weed people out. And sometimes, honest truthfully, sometimes people's bodies just fail. Like, knees just go out and the backs go out, and they, like, physically just they want to, but their body just can't handle the training. And there's some people who are not mentally or emotionally strong enough to make it through the training. But your drill instructors are there to make, like, their job is to turn you into a Marine. And so I think one reason, so there is a washout rate, but I think that rate is as low. I mean, it is there, but it is low as it is because the drill instructors do a great job of finding a way to get people to graduate. In a prime example, I have a family. I guess it's a step cousin. He married my cousin, and he was a drill instructor in the Marine Corps, and he had this one guy. He was overweight, and he couldn't do pull-ups. And of course, you have to do at least three pull-ups to be a Marine, to get in the Marine Corps, to graduate boot camp. You have to do at least 3 pull-ups for men. And this guy couldn't do it. I mean, he couldn't even do one. I'm not even sure how he got in. And so the drill instructor called his mom and was saying, "Hey, like he's not
gonna make it, right?"
Yeah. And so anyways, the mom was like devastated. It's like, this is the only thing he's ever wanted. Like, he can't come back home a Marine. And so my cousin-in-law, he told the senior DI, like, "Hey, we can't drop this guy. Like, we've got to get him. We got to figure out how to do it." And so the senior DI says, "Well, you own him. Like, he's yours. I haven't have nothing to do with them." And so anyways, when it came to time to do his pull-ups, he pulls him behind the barracks and like pulls out a K-bar and threatens to kill the guy. And is like, "If you do not do 3 pull-ups, like, I'm going to kill you." And like scared the guy to death, that he gets up there and does 3 pull-ups because he knew that he was going to get killed. Like, he was literally feared the DI was going to stab him to death or cut him in pieces if he didn't.
That's what you're calling pep talk.
Yes.
"Hey man, you're going to do 3 pull-ups or I'm going to kill you."
Yes. But it worked. It worked, man. I mean, it was exciting. The guy was probably the best thing that ever happened to his life. And, it's, we have a saying also in the Marine Corps, it's called do or die. If we're going to either do it or die trying. And that's the mindset you got to have as an entrepreneur, a business owner, or, you just got to say, "I'm just going to do it." You've got to be focused, and you have to stay on track. You have to be self-disciplined. You have to set goals and you have to reach them. But we also have to have wisdom too. As I talk, I do business coaching. And so I do life coaching as well. And when I coach people and talk to them, even a lot of people who are entrepreneurs, they read a lot of books about successful people, and like they never gave up. And so then you have some entrepreneurs that they never give up on their one plan, that like their one business plan, and it's a failed business plan, right? Like, everybody says no. And I know that, if you read a lot of the books, I think it was Bill Gates or something, he said like 10,000 people told him no, but one said yes. And he made those guys multimillionaires.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, we have to have that, but that's not the common thing. The common thing is you fail. If we continue after the same thing and everybody says no and everybody says no. And so what I'm saying is, we don't give up on our dream. Like, we're steadfast. We're going to do or die, but we need to know when to pivot, and so the main thing, we want to be independent. We want to make our own way. We want to make a difference. We want to be successful, and classify or define successful at however you want to. And we're driven to do those things. And so I was a executive at $139 million company and walked away. Great everything, right? The only person I had to answer to was the owner of the company. Wanted to move up, wanted to continue to do things. I could have stayed there, had a nice cushy life, and stayed there till I retired, and decided to go out on my own to do something different. And my wife's very conservative. And so I would say this: if you are an entrepreneur, like, if your spouse isn't on board, don't do it. It doesn't work. You're not going to have the energy to hold your family together and hold whatever you're trying to build and or create on this other side if your energy's spent on I've got to keep my family together.
Right.
um
So you're essentially, at some point of a time, from what I am hearing, you might be forced to choose, right? Whether you
mhm.
were keep pushing and keep striving
Yeah.
in
Hmm.
maybe successful venture, because
Hmm.
no one gonna say you for sure that, hey man, you know what, this is 100% path to
Hmm.
success, right?
Yeah.
You're keep trying, you're thriving, but no one will guarantee you anything,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
But sometimes you can face the situation when it is like, well, I cannot guarantee you that you're going to be successful in business, but I can guarantee you that you won't be successful in your family
Hmm.
life, so just
Yeah.
choose, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, if you look at most successful business owners who have large companies now, they're on the second or third wife. So I think sometime when I say, like a while ago, I said define success in any way you want to, is because you've got to look at it and say, okay, what's important? Do I really want to just build this massive company, or do I want a family and have a so company? Or I'm not you know what I'm saying? Like you've got to weigh out those balances, and you've got to say what's really important. And for some people, it's the business. That's what they want, and they're willing to sacrifice anything and everything. And if the spouse isn't in bought in, they can't make it. And another thing you got to think, being an entrepreneur is we're different, right? Like we're okay with being poor. We're okay with hard times. But maybe your spouse isn't. And maybe your spouse is like, hey, I believe in you and I know you're going to be great one day, but I can't handle it anymore. I can't handle the pressure. I can't handle the stress. Um, and so you've got to balance that in. I will confess on myself the thing that I struggle at, and so I've got a great wife. We've been married for over 20 years, got 3 great kids. The thing that I struggle with is sharing too much or putting too much of the burden on my wife. I'm trying to do this and I'm carrying that burden, but I want her to carry the burden with me. And so what I realize is I'm crushing my wife, if that makes sense. I'm putting too much on her. This isn't her responsibility, it's my responsibility. I'm driving it, not her. And so I'm talking too much. I'm saying too much. I'm verbalizing my stresses or fears too much to her.
And
And
on
our
the other hand, whom to you gonna talk about all of that? I
Yeah.
mean, from my perspective, especially like taking into account what you've just mentioned, you've
Hmm.
been married 20 years, right? Your best friend, your
Hmm.
best, I don't know, buddy. At the
Yes.
end of the
Yeah.
day, it can be your wife. It doesn't mean that you
Hmm.
won't have like other friends, you
Hmm.
entrepreneurs, right? But
Yeah.
if you haven't been, and this is also like interesting topic, we've talked about that with Dr. John Sebasta, that a lot of entrepreneurs, especially from the historically underrepresented groups, and by the way, just recently veterans like are starting to be
Hmm.
recognized as like underrepresented economically group, right? If you didn't have that experience in your family of being an entrepreneur, of
Yeah.
building company, no matter how big or small the size gonna be, it can be even like, the tiny, I don't know, deli shop on the
Mhm.
corner of the
Mhm.
street, right? But still,
Yeah.
if you didn't have that experience in your family or the closest circle,
Mhm.
you don't know what you don't know,
Yeah.
essentially, right?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
yes, you can make that leap of faith, but at the end of the day, entrepreneurship is lonely journey,
Yep.
and it turns to be even worse when you're on your own and you do not have anyone you can talk
Mhm.
to, right?
Yeah.
And therefore you're gonna be forced to talk to the closest human being you have on
Mhm.
this planet Earth,
Yeah.
right? And that's going to be your spouse.
Mhm.
So inevitably, you're going to put all that burden,
Yeah.
all that stress um, on their shoulders, and
Mhm.
not because you don't love them, but rather because you do trust them, right?
Yeah.
They're going to
Mhm.
support you through the worst
Mhm.
times. But does that mean that they do understand what we're talking about?
Mhm.
If they've never tried to become
Mhm.
entrepreneurs, most probably they
Yeah.
do not understand what you're going through. They
No.
just do understand that, like, well, you're suffering, and that's
Yeah.
right, like it, right?
Yeah.
So But the problem is that, okay, how can I help? And you do
Hmm.
not have the recipe, right? Because
Yeah.
you don't know how you can
Hmm.
help. How you
Yeah.
can help, I don't know, was getting first customers.
Hmm.
How the hell should I know, right?
Yeah.
I never
Yeah.
got them.
Yeah. Yeah. In
Or
their
I
mind,
didn't,
they're like, I want my spouse to stop hurting. And so
right.
they're being loving and they say, just get a job. But that's the
Mm,
last thing the entrepreneur wants to hear. When they hear, "Hey, just get a job," are you saying I'm going to fail? I can't do this. You don't believe in me, And the spouse isn't saying that.
right.
They're just saying, "I want this to stop. I want your pain to stop. The stress that you're putting on me, I want you to stop being under that stress. So just get a job. Let's just be okay with what we're at." But and that's the absolutely worst thing that you can tell an entrepreneur is like, just get a job. Number one, it's either it's going to drive them even more, or it's going to crush them. It's going to say, well, you don't believe in me. And you're going to have this friction between now you and your best friend, your number one supporter. And like you said, it's very lonely to be an entrepreneur, and you need that person. And so, one way to address that, and so kind of a pitch of what I do. So like I was talking about the DI, the drill instructor in the Marine Corps boot camp. They're doing everything they can to push you to make it, to become a U.S. Marine. That's where the business coach comes in. That's where a life coach or consulting. That's really that is an investment in yourself, because you just want to be heard. I can tell you a lot of times with clients or people that I work with, I don't have to say anything. It's literally just learning to shut up and just let them talk, and then be able to be that sounding board to communicate back to them, like somebody, like I'm hearing you. This is what you're saying. And a lot of times just them having the ability to talk to somebody that they know they're listening to, and to be able to verbalize whatever's in their head, they solve their own problems. And you know that's worth any amount of money that you pay a month to figure that out. It's worth it. And so it's hard to equate a value there. But it's if the question would be, what would you pay to be successful? And of course they'll say whatever it takes. Okay, well, if you just need a sounding board, if you need somebody to help get all your thoughts and kind of corral them and put them in the right order, and or do you just need somebody to hold you accountable, to say, hey, you said you were going to do this last week, and did you do X, Y, and Z? No, I didn't do that. Okay, well, pull your head out of it. But if you want to be successful, if you want to launch this thing, these are things you have to get done, and it's not going to happen until you do that one thing. So I think it is um, it is helpful to have somebody to talk to that understands, what maybe not understands exactly, because we're all different people and we'll have different backgrounds and different emotions. So I'll never say to anybody, I know what you feel like and I know what you're going through, because I have a hard time like interpreting my own feelings and what I'm going through. But I know what I have been through, and I know that when I talk to people, it's similar to what they're going through. So I can have um, em- em- empathy with them, and go, okay, I was in a similar situation, and these are things that I've done. This is what I was advised to do, and this is what I've seen success. Maybe they'll work for you. Let's see, can we kind of put a plan together and see if that works. So it is lonely, but you don't have to be alone, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned that you are working as both personal and business coach. What's the difference? Because I'm like, so
Yeah.
essentially, if you're an
Yes.
entrepreneur, you're going to
Mhm.
the business coach. If you're
Yeah.
not an entrepreneur, you're going to the life coach. But like,
Yes. Well, yeah. So for me, I can go whatever. So like on a business coach, we're going to talk about business stuff. We're going to talk about strategy and marketing, and we're going to talk about how to get that first customer. Do you have a viable idea or a project? Does it, who's the people to talk to with funding, kind of on the business side. So life coaching would be like more of a holistic. So that would include that. But then you also have, education or career or family or honest, truthfully, spirituality. I get requests in, and it's like, their spirituality, like they just don't know where they're at in the world. They're just lost, and they don't have a church, they don't have a pastor, and they just don't know where to go to, and they're just like, I don't understand what's going on right now. I don't know where I fit in this whole scheme of things. And so life coaching is kind of includes all of that. It's like a big umbrella, I guess you could say. Business coaching is going to be very narrow about your project or your business you're trying to launch, or but life coaching is life. I mean, hence life coaching, right? It's anything within life. It could even be just dealing with your spouse, dealing with family members. I know my family members have told me many times, just why don't you just get a job? Just go get a job somewhere. And that's, like I said, that's not the right thing to say to an entrepreneur, because they're not hearing love and support. They're hearing, you think I'm a failure and I have to, I can't do this. And so that's
All right. So what might be like, how should or would you rephrase that? Go get a job. Like, if you're saying that your spouse going through very hard times being an
mm-hmm,
entrepreneur, and let's assume even worse, you do not have the faith in their business idea, which can be the case, right?
mm-hmm. Yeah,
You
yeah,
just do not see the value behind, you don't understand what exactly they are trying to achieve, but you still are willing to support to your maximum. What might be, I don't know, the way to show
yeah.
that support?
So two things that you'd have to, so if I'm having a conversation, and or when I have these conversations, number one, I find out, do they even get it, or do they really want to be a business owner? A lot of people, they think they want to be a business owner, and they think they want to be an entrepreneur, but then when they really find out what it takes, they don't really want to. And so I think one part, you have to say, okay, does this person really have it? Do they really have the drive to be in business? Because sometimes some people just need to be told, you know what, you have no idea what you're doing. You need to like regroup. You can't bankrupt your family on a bad idea. If it's a bad idea, it's a bad idea. And
All
so
right. So how
you've
do
got
you
to
figure
have,
out that this is enough or this is bad idea? Because if
mhm,
you're a believer, right? If you have that, especially when we were talking about the attitude, like
mhm,
you just shared, the marine attitude, right?
mhm,
Do or die. So
yeah,
you have that attitude, and now you have the great idea, at least from your perspective,
yep,
and therefore you're gonna do it,
mhm,
you're gonna die trying, right?
yeah,
So if that means that you're gonna bankrupt your family, well, whatever it takes.
mhm, yep, yeah.
So when it is enough.
So that's the hard thing, getting through their heads. And so you have to advise them. You try to bring out, hey, look what we're looking. And let me put it this way. You really got to go back to their number one, do they have the ability? If they're sleeping till noon every day because they don't have to go to a job, like, hey man, like don't fill me full of BS. One thing, part of being a life coach or business coach, you got to be blunt. And it's like, okay, when are you waking up? Okay, I wake up at 5:30. That's when I wake up. Most entrepreneurs usually wake up early and go to bed late. So if they're waking up, at 9, 10, 11 o'clock, and then they're playing video games all day, like, no, like, just forget it. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's some characteristics that you can find that they're doing or not doing. If they're drinking a lot or doing drugs or just, looking at things online they shouldn't be looking, like, hey, these are all indicators you're in a very unhealthy place. Like, you're not going to get anywhere. Now, if you want to correct all this stuff, then let's talk about moving forward. But if not, let's go the other way. And so we talked about earlier when we first started about pivoting, having that wisdom to pivot. And so the one guy or gal who's driving and driving and driving and driving and there's a lot of great ideas that make zero money. There's a lot of great ideas that never get launched because it's too much funding. It's not the right timing. You don't know the right people. Like there's just because you have a great idea doesn't mean you're going to go anywhere with it. It's hard to get a great idea out. And so a lot of times you can say, this is my end goal. This is what I really want to do. But to get to that, I need X funding, and the banks aren't going to give it to me, or doesn't make financial sense to take out such a large loan with such a bad interest rate, or, what I'm saying? Like sometimes you got to look at the finances, like this doesn't make sense. But then you say, okay, what else can I do that can help me drive this idea, that can connect me with people, and maybe we can start something else. And so for me personally, I left a dealership and I wanted to buy my own dealership. I've made other people millions of dollars, and I'm like, why can't I make myself millions of dollars? Well, try to buy one. That fell apart at the last minute. Try to start one up. I said, well, I had contacts. I know people. I'll just start my own dealership. I'll just build it up from the ground. It was during COVID. So supply chain issues, funding issues,
right,
and everything. And I was like, none of this makes sense. Like I'm going to be,
but the business idea was still over there.
Yeah, it was a great idea.
That was a black swan, right? You cannot predict COVID. You cannot be prepared for COVID. There's essentially no way to do that. And tons of startups couldn't make it through, not because they were bad or idea were bad or they weren't, entrepreneurs didn't want to thrive or whatever, right? Or to grind. They're just COVID was COVID, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah. So did you get back to the dealership?
No. So in the process, so this is what we have to learn. Like life is a process. Life is an adventure. And I will tell people this, like, if you really want something bad enough, you'll do whatever it takes to get there. And so what I realized in that process, once I made the right decisions financially, like these aren't going to work. Like this, it's not feasible. But looking back on it, I really realized I could have launched it if I wanted to, but I didn't want it bad enough. I wasn't willing to sell a lot of things or liquidate some of my assets that I could have done self-funding. And so then I realized, like hindsight, like 2020, like hindsight's 2020, looking back, and I realized that's not really what I wanted. And I was very thankful to God for COVID, for those things not working out, because if they would had, I'd have been miserable about a year or 2 years in it and wanted out of it, but then would have had millions and millions of dollars online, like it owned the investors and stuff. And I would have been stuck and doing a job I really didn't want to do. And so what I realized, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew I was tired of working for other people, and I was tired of making other people millions of dollars, and I wanted to do something for myself. And so that's what I was good at. That's what I've done. And so during that process, at one point I did get a job. So currently I'm director of dealer accounts management for Jordan Sitter Associates. There are a heavy equipment executive search firm. And so I did. So I pivot and I'm like, okay, I burnt through a stupid amount of cash. And, my wife was stay-home wife. She homeschooled our kids. So, I had to finance like 2 years just out of my savings. But during that process, it's like, okay, I got to slow the burn. So I kind of took a job. But in the process, had the opportunity to write a book. And then, so now I realize, what I really want to do, I want to help people. I like to make things better. And that's what I really enjoy about the dealership, is working in the product support side of it to increase product support, to profitability, customer service, all those things. And so coaching and training is what I really wanted to do. And like speaking engagement, stuff like that. That's what I really get excited about, like helping people be successful. But I don't think I'd ever really fully realized that's what I wanted until I went through like 2 or 3 years of living hell, of nothing working right. And also I think that gives me a unique perspective to be able to go through multiple failures of not getting things launched, that I can have conversations with people. And like, once again, I don't know what they're feeling, but I have an idea. I know what I felt like, and I know where I was at when I had all these other pressures from my spouse and my family, like do this, do that, that
Right.
didn't understand why I was so driven. So, so yeah, so I think, so that's where that pivoting is. I think you have to have wisdom. Even though you have a good idea, can make money, that may not be what you want. Life truly is a adventure. Like, we're not going to, I mean, we'll die at some point, but we're not going to die until we die. And we have no say so. We have no control over when we die. God does. God is the one that says this is when you'll be born, and God says this is when the day that you'll die. And we have zero control over I have zero control over my birth, and I've got zero control over my death rate, or when I die. And so live like you're going to live forever, and have faith, like everything's going to work out. And so have a good business plan, understand what you're trying to do, take good, wise counsel, but also you got to know when to pivot. You got to say, you know what, there's a reason that 50 banks told me no, or 150 people told me no. And so maybe that pivot is like, redo your plan, your business plan. And I mean business plan, not necessarily rewrite it, but just like, okay, what's my product? Let me figure something else out, because I can tell you, if it's successful, people are going to give you money. If it's a great idea, they're going to give you money. There's people who have made money, who have been the entrepreneur, who've been through that process, and they've got cash that they want to give people. They're just looking for people. And so if it's not working, you got to ask, why is it not working? Why aren't people writing me checks? And so this is one thing I've learned. If people tell you how great of an idea is, but they don't write a check, then they're lying to you. If they thought it was a great idea and believed in it as much as you think they would, they're going to write you a check. And that's one thing I've learned personally. Like, don't get all excited because everybody tells you how great you are. If they don't give you any money, then they're not being honest with you.
Right, but also that like sometimes it can be that you just knocking up like at the front doors. What do I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we do know that, like, for example, I don't know, Uber, they didn't get funded like for a
Mm-hmm.
while, and they
Yeah.
couldn't get funded because it is very expensive idea,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's like
Mm-hmm.
whole marketplace, and you gonna need to, and they've spent it like tons of money
Yeah.
to make it right. Or like there are essentially a lot of products
Mm-hmm.
which and services which has been pitched over and over and over again,
Mm-hmm.
and like founders weren't able to find money. Everybody told them that like it is stupid, yada yada yada,
Yeah.
until the moment they just hit the right spot.
Mm-hmm.
It does mean and don't get me wrong, it's not like that I'm trying to push you, yeah, just keep going
Yeah.
even though it's not working or the idea
Mm-hmm.
like isn't there or whatever,
Yeah.
right? But simply because someone, especially if they're out of your bubble, out of your
Mm-hmm.
market, they do not understand the idea.
Mm-hmm.
And this is essentially what you were talking about, right? They're saying to you that, oh, this is a great idea, but they are not supporting you. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they do not put skin in the game, which means
Yeah.
that they do not understand the idea,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it can also mean that they do not understand not the idea, but the market. That was
Mm-hmm.
yet another great example that Dr. John Sebasta gave me, that sometimes investors, for example, if that's the, I don't know, the investor and and like his dad was an investor, right? And
Mm-hmm.
he's the, let's assume, a white guy from Massachusetts. He had his Harvard degree. How on earth he will understand the product for the, I don't know, auto mechanics?
Mm-hmm.
It might be perfect product.
Yeah.
The market can be over there.
Mm-hmm.
The unique value proposal can be over there. The business model can be over there, but you have no idea what the
Mm-hmm.
auto mechanics are struggling with, and therefore you will assume that, or you're gonna solely check the numbers, which for a lot of startups cannot be their strongest
Yeah.
side, right? And since they do not understand the need, they do not understand the market, they've never been in the shoes of
Yeah.
these guys,
Hmm.
they will assume that your business idea isn't, like, feasible or vital,
Hmm.
simply because, like, the numbers doesn't look good, and like, I do not understand these folks, right? So it's like, I don't know, if you would came in the middle of Los Angeles downtown and will try to talk to everybody using Mandarin, no one will understand you.
Yeah.
Does it
Correct.
mean
Yeah.
that your, like,
Yeah.
Mandarin language is bad? Well, not
Yeah.
necessarily. It just means that you are using, or trying to pitch your product to the wrong audience,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And so I don't want to sound like I'm saying like give up, give up. And so if you don't get the fund, but you need to regroup. Okay, why am I not getting the funding? Why are we not making progress? Do I, like you're saying, do I have the right product for the right market? Am I using the correct verbiage? Am I communicating correctly? Am I speaking their lingo? Um, and and that's what's key. Is like, okay, don't keep doing the same thing over and over and over again and expect a different outcome. And so when I was talking about
This is
pivoting or
madness.
looking, yeah, it is madness. Is you push it, you try it, you don't do it once or twice and go, okay, well, let's tweak it again. Let's do it. Like you've got to put some effort. Maybe that's 100 times, maybe it's 150 times. Like everything's different. Depends on the market, the product. But once you realize, okay, I'm not getting anywhere. I've talked to 500 people, or I don't know, maybe it is 100 people or 50, whatever. Like that's where that wisdom comes in. Like there's no cut and dry of this is how you start a business, this is how you get funding. I kind of picture, maybe this may help us understand, like there's just 1,000 doors and we've got to check every door. That's what we're doing. We're checking every door. But if we're standing at the same door that's locked and we keep trying to open that same door, that's what I'm saying. Is like if that door doesn't open and you've tried it 3 or 4 times and you've even pushed on it and beat on it, well, go to the next door. And I think a lot of times people, or in life and also in business, we stand at that same door and we keep, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to start my business and I'm going to build this whatever, and I'm going to go through this door. Okay, well maybe you're going to have to go 5 doors down to come back around to get to that door on the other side. And that's where the failure is you're trying to beat down that one door. The door's not budging. It's not going to open. But then there's a door right next to it that's opened. And so we've got to have the wisdom to say, okay, this door isn't opening. And maybe I know at some point I have to get through this door, but maybe I got to find another way around. Like maybe I've got to open up two or three doors down. And I think that's where the business coach really comes in and helps you walk through that. And then also it's just a great, you can get group think, built in, with one or two partners or just a couple other people helping you. And we're all just zeroed in on this one door. And we've lost track on how do we reach success. We're all focusing on how on earth do we open this door? Well, the door is not going to open. But then you get somebody from the outside, who's taking a step back and looking at the overall big picture, and they see the other door and they're like, well, have you tried that door? No, I don't like that door. I've never liked that door. Well, have you tried that door? No. Why don't you just try it? And if it doesn't open, then we know that door is locked as well. But a lot of times the door will open, and it will lead us to something else. So, that's what I experienced in my life. Like I wanted to work for myself. I wanted to build something. I wanted to make something, and I wanted to be successful. And so I tried a lot of different things, and I thought those were the things I wanted. And I invested a lot of money. Like I blew a lot of cash and spent a lot of time. And I realized, well, that's not working. That's not working. And so, I've tried different things. So basically three different things that didn't work. And I was like, well, I don't know what to do right now. I'm gonna have to get a job because I'm burning through a lot of cash. And so as I was like, you know what, well, I'm waiting to get a job. I've always wanted to write a book. I started writing it years ago. So I've got this perfect time, i.e. the other door. So I spent, 8 to 10 hours a day in my pool house writing a book. And so then I've got the book published, and then I get speaking engagements, and then people want to call me now and like, hey, can you come help us on our business? Can you, and so it opens up doors, but I had to have 3 failures to get the opportunity or open that other door. But we've got to be willing to shift. We can't just be so laser focused on everything, unless you have that one thing, that, like Steve Jobs with Apple. I mean, he was just laser focused. That's what he's going to do. And I don't want to discourage anybody, and, hope I'm not like kind of a downer, but I'm more of a realist. And we all have to realize not all of us are Steve Jobs. Everybody wants to quote Steve Jobs, but if you ever read his biography, he wasn't the nicest guy in the world. He wasn't well liked.
Not almost none of the like entrepreneurs, and I mean like who were like top maybe 500
Mm-hmm.
like list of the companies, right? They are not the nicest person
Mm-hmm.
on the earth, right? But they are not trying to achieve that like
No,
beige
they're not.
being the nicest,
Yeah.
right? But like I'm wondering, after you find that the job, like after all these failures, have you started to feel that, oh, okay, now I'm like relieved, and now I can focus on pursuing my another dream, becoming a coach?
Yeah. Um, yeah. Cause it kind of, failure will clarify things for you. It answers questions and go, okay, that's not it. I didn't know what it was, but it's not that. And so now, I mean, think about it. The failure is such a great gift of the fact that I never have to worry about it. I never have to worry, when I'm on my deathbed, man, I sure wish I would have tried to start a dealership. I tried and I wasn't successful, but in the process of trying to start it, I realized, that's not really what I wanted.
Right.
And so I'm going to take a step back, kind of our conversation here. They're not to be too generic, but there's some people in life know exactly what they want. Like they're just laser focused, like somebody like Steve Jobs. They know exactly what they want. The rest of us, including me in that group. Um, and I don't know you well enough to know where you're at in that group. But for me, uh, I was asked a question years ago from a really good friend of mine. And he asked me, what do you want to do, John? If you could do anything in the world, what do you want to do? And it has taken me probably like 7 years to answer that question. Like, what do I want to do? And so that's one, I guess this is what the underlining theme here. You've got to know what you want to do. You've got to be able to visualize what success is. What does that look like tangible things. And then you work backwards from there. Like, this is what I want. This is where I'm at. And then you work your way back. And until we can visualize that. And so a lot of people like me, I knew I didn't want to work for anybody else. I knew I was sick and tired of making people a lot of money and I don't reap the benefits. I get like a little wage that they could change my wage anytime they wanted to. And I was kind of stuck, and I was like, well, that's not very exciting. That's not rewarding. You know, you made an extra 5 million, but then you're telling me, that you don't want to pay out my bonus because I'm making too much money, but you're making another $5 million. Like, I don't get that. And so I wanted to have as much control of my destiny as possible, which is kind of a thing like smoke. Like in the Bible, in the book of Ecclesiastes, it talks about like the meaning of life is like a vapor. Like you can't grab it. And so as much as possible, I know I don't have complete control of my life, but as much as possible, I'd like to take my destiny into my own hands and not rely on somebody else on a paycheck. that could terminate me or fire me at a whim just because we didn't agree on something and I stood my ground and it cost me my job. Now, if you're an entrepreneur and you have a backbone and you stand up for your values and your beliefs, it may cost you customers, but at least that you know that and you know that going into it. So I think knowing, you have to know what you want. And so I did a training video. If you go to my LinkedIn page, I got a YouTube channel as well.
I'm gonna leave all those links in the video subscription, and will make sure that I will, like,
Okay,
link
awesome.
everything properly. So yeah,
So I
folks,
did it.
you will
Yeah,
have it all.
awesome. So my training on my last one of my videos is just about what is success, and we shouldn't let anybody define what success is for us. And success is knowing what you want, like visualizing what you want. Um, and it's I tell people it's okay if you just want to be a father or a mother, and I say just, so that's probably not the right verbiage. If your desire is to be a husband and a father and a wife and a mother, and you want to raise kids and you want to spend time with them, you don't really care about money, you're frugal, and you just want to have a nice family life with your kids and raise them up, support your kids, so you can send them to a trade school or support them either through college or whatever that is. I'm not saying everybody has to go to college. um, if that's success for you, then let's work towards that. And who cares? Don't let nobody tell you that you're not successful because you didn't go to college. Don't let anybody tell you you're not successful because you're not the boss or you're not the supervisor or not the CEO. What do you want in life? Let's define that and let's go after that. I think a lot of people are unhappy. I know a lot of people men that went to school, got a business degree, and was working in a cubicle and hated their job. Like, that's not success. Yeah, it's a great thing to complete college and get a business degree. Like, great. You probably won't ever really regret that. But if you're working in a cubicle and you're hoping that you may make it up, that you're going to climb that ladder at some point, you know, that's not happiness. A lot of guys now, and you'll see this in the trades a
Well,
lot.
for some people, it can be happiness. I mean, for some people, the like quiet, maybe super stable life,
Yeah.
that's
Mhm.
success. That's
Yeah.
the definition of
Hmm.
success. I just
Yeah.
wanted to clear that up. That, like, sometimes it is absolutely okay to work in whatever,
Hmm.
like,
You may
environment.
like working in a cubicle. You may like the peace and quiet, and you may just like being left alone. And if that is what you want, then that's success. Like, just relish in that success and just say, this is great. I have a good life. Don't think you have to define your success by somebody else's definition. And if you watch the media or the
Or,
world or
yeah, or whatever, like, God
hmm
forbid, if you're trying to rely on the definition of success based on the
hmm
social media, uh, that's not gonna work.
yeah.
And even those influencers aren't, they do not believe themselves.
Yeah.
So why we're choosing to believe them, I
hmm
don't know. But, like, 47, I believe, percent out of the Gen Z folks, right, this is our, like, use, right,
hmm
they wanted to become influencers,
hmm
and they're seeing this as their career path.
yeah.
That which might be absolutely the case. It might be their definition of
hmm
success, right? But the
yeah.
fact that we are so overwhelmed with the social media standards and
hmm
social media in general, that might push us sometimes to forget about
hmm
who we are,
yeah.
right? And what do we want? And you're
hmm
absolutely right. Maybe not necessarily I had to finish, like, or I had to have a degree,
hmm
or I had to be, I don't know, whatever, a wife, a CEO, a mother, to be marked by somebody else
hmm
as successful. And
yeah.
in many cases, or even in most of the cases, that's not going to help. Like, that's not going to work. What I mean, you can be the best in the world CEO, you can be super successful from the
hmm
business perspective, like, point of view. But there are always going to be people like me, for example, right,
Mm-hmm.
who will claim on their podcast, you know what, this CEO isn't the nicest person in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to be, gosh, I want it to be the nicest, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there always going to be someone who will willing to criticize you, to maybe
Mm-hmm.
find some flaws or mistakes. Does that mean that that should stop you
Yeah.
from like moving toward your goal? I
Mm-hmm.
don't think so. And I do remember when I was starting, my company like Nana Fund, right? And I was trying to set up the not the goal, like not the business goal for the financial projections or whatever, but rather,
Mm-hmm.
mission statement, like why on earth I'm working on that, and what do I want to do, and what do I want to have. And for me, that, I've decided that to formalize that mission based on revenue or whatever, it
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't be a mission, right? That's
Yeah.
financial
Mm-hmm.
projections.
Yeah.
So I've realized that my mission is very simple, is
Mm-hmm.
to have opportunity in 5 years from now to say that every minute, thankfully to my platform, some veteran or military spouse who
Mm-hmm.
own the business get funded.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's it. As
Yeah.
simple as that. Every minute. What does it mean? Well, that I need to figure out how the hell I'm going to bring all the veterans and military spouses on
Mm-hmm.
my platform, and how I will make sure that they will get
Yeah.
funded, which
Mm-hmm.
means that how I'm going to connect with the financial institutions, right?
Mm-hmm.
With the credit unions, community banks, SBA lenders, and I will share with them, I mean, with the financial institutions, this idea that veterans, they are very responsible borrowers.
Mm-hmm.
They do
Yeah.
have that attitude, do or die.
Yeah.
And military spouses, this is yet another huge overseen market. A lot of military spouses are being forced to start their ventures simply because they cannot build the like
Mm-hmm.
typical career because of all
Yeah.
the movements, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
they are forced to become entrepreneurs, and they also can be quite amazing and successful
Yeah.
entrepreneurs
Mm-hmm.
because of their like life experience.
Mm-hmm.
This is, I mean, we cannot like cross out and forget about all the life experience we had, right?
Yeah.
It is shaping us. All the obstacles we went through shaping us as the human
Mm-hmm.
beings. They're gonna shape our character.
Yeah.
So this like, majority of financial institutions, they're just starting to realize how big the market is, and
Mm-hmm.
how it is important to provide that help, to provide that support, and to be in the corner
Mm-hmm.
of the veterans and military
Yeah.
spouses.
Yeah, and that's a great need. That's a need, that you can help and provide, and that's where I think a lot of veterans, they struggle with, or really in any entrepreneur, like, where do I get funding? And there's a lot of programs and grants out there, and there's a lot of ways to do it. But if you don't know it, you have this other dream and vision over here, but then you're like, where I got to learn all this other stuff to do this. Well, that's where, we have to realize we can invest in our future and reach out to people, like yourself. If you need funding, let's go to somebody who's already done it, a gazillion times, that knows the banks and knows the people, knows the process. I was doing some tax stuff for an LLC the other day, and I was like, I mean, it's not hard. I mean, I'm a smart guy. I get it. But then it's like, I've got one more thing I've got to learn and figure out just to do one thing. And then I'm never going to do it ever again. How much brain power and creativity went into me solving that. And so my fault, my downfall or drawback or weakness is I want to do everything myself. Like, I don't want to pay somebody else. I always think I can do that just as good as they can. I've got that confidence in myself. And for the most part, I can. But what I am learning, and I'm like trying to teach myself, is, John, that's true. I can do a lot of things myself. But how much more money could I be making with my time, or how other creative work I could be doing, instead of wasting all that brain power and energy and time in something that I could pick up a phone and pay somebody some money just to handle it for me. And so that, like, so just confessing on my own shortfall, like that's one of my struggles. And I stress myself out because I'm like, how do you do this? I'm trying to, work too many hours and do too many things where I could just say, okay. And money's tight, when you start up and you're looking for funding, you're looking for every dollar. And so I get it. But, and so, like, cause I'm trying to kind of telling on myself is like, it's okay to pay somebody else to do things. You only have your mind is a muscle, and we only have so much energy or so much capacity. And I think the hardest thing, like one thing for a business coach that, or life coach, however you want to call that, is one of our responsibilities is determine how much capacity does a person have, and make sure they don't overflow that plate. Because if you put too much stuff on a plate, something's going to slip off. And that's where where people start getting in trouble. So you got to realize how much capacity do they have, what can they handle, and then start advising them to reach out to service providers to handle that. And sometimes it's like, hey, you're just being lazy. Like, you've got a lot of capacity and you're doing half the work. You're not launching, or you're not getting funding, or you're not doing anything because you're not doing anything. Anyways, yeah, it's
Yeah, that all makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. You first of all, you need to realize much of the capacity you do have and how to utilize this capacity to
mm-hmm,
the top effectiveness level,
mm-hmm,
right?
yeah,
So there you go. Okay, that was a great episode. We are at our the first hour, but I guess that this is gonna be the wrap up. Thank you so much for your time.
yeah,
I'm gonna make sure that I'm gonna leave all the links in the subscription, and I'm gonna mention the YouTube channel, which where John's sharing all his ideas, and just recently shared the idea or the question what success means. And I tend to believe this is very important. So I would encourage all of you folks just go and listen, and also share some love, comments, subscription, all the typical stuff and things which are helping to promote the videos and helping the folks like me and John to know that you are over here, you're listening, and you're enjoying, and you're ready to support. Therefore, put some skin in the game. Thank you so much, John. It was a
yeah,
great pleasure.
yeah. Thanks for having me.